Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. We're really getting into something today that, well, I think we've all been there, am I right? It's about
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, but not just any Wi-Fi. We're talking about the dream of having Wi-Fi that never lets you down. Like, imagine you're just about to win that online game, score that epic goal, and bam,
Mm.
lag.
Oh, the worst. We've all been there.
The worst, right? So we're diving into some really cool research about how to make Wi-Fi way more reliable, especially with more gadgets, more devices, everything needing a piece of that Wi-Fi pie these days.
Yeah, it's getting crowded out there.
No kidding. And
Nice.
nowadays it's not just checking emails. We're talking streaming in crazy high definition and VR that needs rock solid internet. Even a tiny hiccup can throw everything off.
Absolutely. You need that smooth connection, no question.
Totally. So this research paper, it's all about this new idea called It's Your Turn. IYT for short. Catchy, right?
I like it.
And the goal is to make Wi-Fi, predictable. Like it's going to work.
Your clockwork.
Exactly. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we got to understand why Wi-Fi can be, well, so random sometimes.
Right? It can feel like a mystery. Sometimes it works great. Sometimes not so much.
Oh,
So see, with how Wi-Fi works now, with these standards, 802.11, it's like devices are trying to be polite, trying not to interrupt each other. But sometimes that politeness leads to, well, let's just say miscommunication.
miscommunication, as in my video call dropping out right when I'm about to share a brilliant idea.
Exactly. Think of it this way, like a room packed with people, everyone trying to talk at once.
Oh, I've been in those meetings.
Yeah.
Total chaos. So not really a structured conversation.
Yeah, more like everyone for themselves, hoping for the best. And right now, they're using this system, binary exponential backoff, BBs. Basically, every device picks a random wait time before sending data.
Okay, so they're all playing a guessing game.
Kind of, but if two devices pick the same random time, boom, collision.
And that's where the lag comes in, the dreaded lag.
Exactly, those collisions throw everything off.
Wi-Fi roulette, nobody wants to play that.
Right, so researchers have been trying to solve this, make things smoother.
Yeah, the paper mentioned some solutions. They're trying.
Yeah, some clever ideas out there. One is all about priority. Important stuff gets through first, like an ambulance in traffic.
Makes sense, some things can't wait.
Right. And then there's deterministic backoff, or DB. This tries to make a schedule, like taking turns.
Oh, so instead of random, it's like you go, then I go.
Exactly. But DB, it's not perfect. Hard to get the settings right for every situation.
Especially with so many devices these days.
Exactly. And that's where IYT comes in. This new idea, it could be a game changer.
Okay, so we know there's a problem. Unpredictable Wi-Fi. Huh, the worst. We've got some solutions. They're all right, but not perfect. Now let's talk about IYT. What makes it so different? What's the secret sauce?
It's like giving your devices a sense of, well, spatial awareness.
Spatial awareness. Like my phone will know it's right next to the router.
In a way, yeah. IYT lets the devices find other networks around them, even tell them apart with these new colors in Wi-Fi 6.
Hold on, colors. Are we painting the routers now?
Not exactly. It's more like, each network gets a different jersey, so devices can tell them apart easily.
Ah, so it's about identification.
Hmm.
But how does IYT use that to make things reliable?
3 steps. First, neighbor detection. IYT uses those IDs to find other networks nearby, figuring out who's sharing the airwaves.
No more clueless devices.
Exactly. Then, creating order. Once it knows who's who, it makes a transmission schedule, like a line at the coffee shop, no more cutting.
Much more civilized.
Right. And lastly, smart backoff. Instead of random times, it picks times that fit the order.
So it's like, okay, you go first, I'll wait my turn. That's how it avoids those collisions, right?
You got it. It's about making Wi-Fi a well-coordinated dance, not a free-for-all.
I like the sound of that. But I'm a visual learner. Any diagrams in the paper that can help us picture this?
Definitely. Figure 1, it shows BE, DB, and IYT in action. You can really see the difference.
Perfect. Let's take a look.
Okay, so this figure 1, it's showing us these two devices, a STA1 and STA2, trying to send data. And with BEB, wow, it's all over the place. STA2 is like hogging the bandwidth, getting multiple turns, while STA1 just waits.
Yeah, that's BEB in a nutshell.
Got
Totally
it.
random. And you can see why that would be a disaster for anything, that needs a steady connection. Like,
Mhm.
imagine trying to watch a live game with that kind of lag. Forget about it.
Totally. No way. Okay, but then we look at DB and it's like night and day. They're taking turns back and forth.
Yeah.
So neat and tidy.
Right. DB brings some much needed order for
Yeah.
sure. But, we were talking earlier about how rigid it can be. Well, here's where IYT gets really cool. You see how it's also organized, but there's a bit more I don't know, flexibility to it?
Oh, yeah. So it's like they both get us to that predictable outcome, at least in this example, but they get there in totally different ways. IYT feels more adaptable, less strict. You got it. Exactly. And that adaptability, it's key. Especially when we start talking about real-world Wi-Fi, not just two devices. We're talking dozens of devices, all fighting for a connection.
Speaking of which, the researchers, they put IYT through its paces,
Yeah.
right? They use this Commodore simulator. Is that something our listeners would know about?
Probably not. It's a bit of a niche tool, but basically it lets researchers build these virtual Wi-Fi networks, like a testing ground for new ideas, really complex ones too, and they can throw anything at it. Lots of devices, different layouts, all kinds of scenarios.
So what'd they do with IYT? How'd they try to break it?
Well, they started simple, just like that two-device setup we saw, but then they cranked it up. More devices, random placements, trying to mimic, a busy coffee shop or an airport.
Sounds intense. So how'd it do? Did IYT crack under pressure?
Well, remember how we talked about that trade-off? Speed versus reliability?
Yeah.
Sometimes IYT, because it really wants to avoid those collisions, it might be a little slower in terms of peak speeds.
So not always the fastest, but the most reliable.
Yeah. Exactly. And honestly, isn't that what we really want? I mean, what good is super fast internet if it's constantly dropping out?
Ugh, tell me about it. Especially for video calls, I'd take a slightly slower, but rock-solid connection any day.
Exactly. And the simulations, they showed that. IYT might be a tad slower sometimes, but the big thing is it really slashed those super annoying latency spikes.
So what does that mean for the average person? Like, paint us a picture.
Imagine this. You're playing a VR game, totally immersed, and no lag. Or you're on a super important video call, your boss is about to announce something big, and boom, the video freezes. Nope, not with IYT.
It's like the difference between a bumpy ride on a dirt road and a smooth train ride. Yeah, the train might be a bit slower, but it's predictable and it gets you there.
Perfect analogy. And there's something else really cool about IYT. It plays well with others.
You mean I don't need to buy all new gadgets for it to work?
Nope. They found that IYT can work alongside older devices that still use BEB.
That's awesome. Compatibility for the win. Okay, but now I'm remembering, DB, it didn't handle a crowd too well, right? Like too many devices and it would freak out.
You're remembering correctly. But IYT aced it. It stayed reliable even with a ton of devices.
Now that's impressive. Future-proof Wi-Fi, I love it. Okay, but this whole thing about taking turns, prioritizing traffic, it makes me wonder, who gets to decide which device gets priority? Like if they're all taking turns, is there a way to, I don't know, tweak the system? Or is it all automatic?
You're hitting on a really key point. The researchers, they call it the ordering policy, and basically it's the rules of the road for who gets to transmit data when.
So like, if I could make my own perfect Wi-Fi world rules, what would that even look like?
Exactly. What would your ideal setup be? Everyone gets an equal chance, total Wi-Fi democracy, or would you play favorites, prioritize certain devices or stuff you're doing?
Okay, well, part of me likes the fairness thing, but then again, like, if I'm doing something super important, like, I don't know, recording this podcast?
You probably wouldn't want your smart fridge deciding it's the perfect time to download a software update, right?
Exactly. So maybe there needs to be a way to say, hey, this device, this activity, it needs a boost right now. Like a turbo button for your Wi-Fi.
You're thinking like a network engineer now. And get this, imagine if your devices were smart enough to, coordinate on their own.
Oh, like they have their own little Wi-Fi meeting?
Yeah.
Everyone, hold up. The human is trying to record.
Exactly. They could prioritize based on what you're doing, not just your preferences, but the whole context.
So if my smart speaker hears me say, play some jazz, it knows to make sure the music streaming is perfect, even if my laptop's downloading something in the background.
Exactly. Your devices become a team, adjusting on the fly. We're not even just talking about smart homes anymore. It's like intelligent networks, really understanding our digital lives.
Okay, that's next level. We've gone from, my video call froze, to a future where our Wi-Fi is practically psychic. This deep dive has been wild.
It really makes you think, right? Even the most annoying tech problems, they can spark some seriously cool ideas.
No kidding. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive into IYT and the quest for, what was it, deterministic Wi-Fi? Sounds way less intimidating now.
It's been awesome exploring this with you.
Likewise. And for everyone listening, if you're as intrigued by the future of Wi-Fi as we are, check out the full research paper. We'll link it in the show notes. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and may your Wi-Fi always be on point.